Hello everyone, my name is Jhomai Canlas and this is a continuation of Module 7 titled Monitoring and Evaluating Social Marketing and Social Mobilization Programs. You are here to learn about some qualitative approaches in monitoring and evaluating social marketing and social mobilization programs. Just a recap of what my co-reporters have discussed, monitoring and evaluation are complementary. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD, in 2002 defines monitoring as a continuous function that uses the systematic collection of data on specified indicators to provide management and the main stakeholders of an ongoing development intervention with indications of the extent of progress and achievement of objectives in the use of allocated funds. Meanwhile, evaluation is the systematic and objective assessment of an ongoing or completed project, program, or policy, including its design, implementation, and results. The aim is to determine the relevance and fulfillment of objectives, development efficiency, effectiveness, impact, and sustainability. An evaluation should provide information that is credible and useful, enabling the incorporation of lessons learned into the decision-making process of both recipients and the donors. In some OECD countries, for example, early evaluations in the 1960s and 1970s studied ways of improving social programs. Meanwhile, the World Bank in 2004 said monitoring and evaluation is a powerful public management tool that can be used to improve the way governments and organizations achieve results. In my report, I will discuss to you some pros and cons of qualitative analysis and some common qualitative methodologies used in monitoring and evaluating social marketing and social mobilization programs. In monitoring and evaluation, there are different tools or methodologies which are being used to measure success, and they are based on indicators. These indicators can be qualitative or quantitative. World Bank said, or it advocates beginning with a simple and quantitatively measurable system rather than inserting qualitatively measured indicators upfront, because they said that qualitative analysis methods are often subjective, so they should be used with caution. Here are some of the challenges in using qualitative analysis. First, there is just a vast amount of information, which is difficult and time-consuming to analyze, thus resulting to data drowning, which is a situation in which there's too much data to process in any meaningful way. Or it could also lead to trawling, which is collecting large amounts of qualitative data with no real idea of how it should be used. One disadvantage is the tendency to cherry pick or looking evidence to support predefined beliefs and opinions rather than being led by the data itself. Another disadvantage is oversimplified analysis, which loses much of the detail and nuance of the original data. Of course, there's also difficulty in data storage because of the vast amount of information. And also there's tendency for, or a potential for bias in sampling, in conducting interviews by leading questions, documenting, summarizing, and interpreting or reporting data. Meanwhile, the Interact for Civil Society in 2017 highlighted some advantages in using qualitative methodologies. The organization said qualitative analysis methods can provide insight into the changes influenced by civil service organizations. They are generally considered better than quantitative methods for generating sensitive findings or uncovering unexpected changes. It can also shed light on the processes that led to changes, They are considered better than quantitative methods when the need is to find out why something happened or how it happened. It can also capture change, lessons learned from different points of view. It also allows project, program, and organizational staff to use their experience, knowledge, and expertise to help shape findings and create deeper understanding of change processes. It also often results in the generation of case studies or stories of change that can communicate in-depth information on changes in people's lives. This can bring information to life in a way that is not possible through purely quantitative analysis. Also, qualitative methods are therefore very useful for generating marketing and fundraising materials. Lastly, qualitative analysis methods can be used when very little is known about a situation, and it can be used without clear, predicted indicators of change. By contrast, quantitative methods usually require some prior knowledge of what to expect. Many quantitative studies begin with qualitative data collection and analysis to help shape the questions that need to be answered. Now I'm going to discuss 4 common qualitative techniques. The first common qualitative methodology that I'm going to discuss is key informant interviews. And they are individual interviews which are either unstructured, meaning completely free, structured, meaning there's a strict adherence to a set of questions, and more commonly they are semi-structured, meaning there are a set of questions with scope for follow-ups and free discussions. Key informant interviews, they always involve a set of open and closed questions, and sometimes interpreters are required. You need to work out who the key people are. You need to interview as well as tell them when are you going to conduct it and why are you conducting it. You cannot do in-depth interviews with everyone, so you have to know who the key beneficiaries, stakeholders, or participants are. So they are conducted with individuals who are well placed to provide first-hand insights into your subject matter. Some of the advantages is they are very useful for establishing outcomes and impact, and they usually answer questions like, has the behavior of participants changed? Have their lives been transformed? They are also rich sources of qualitative data, and they are good for checking assumptions and capturing impressions, attitudes, and reasons for behavior. They are also a great source of testimonials, and they are also they are done for interviewers who are illiterate or those who cannot answer surveys. Meanwhile, the disadvantages are there is a danger for happy talk, meaning interviewers may just tell you what you want to hear. Also, there could be problems with getting access to interviewees, and there could be suspicions for your motives, and there could also be concerns for those people who do not want to be publicly known. So you have to make sure they are anonymous. Also, there should be an ethical consideration or particular care um, in having questions for or dealing with children and with vulnerable adults. Also, you have to shell out some money because there are interviewees who need to be rewarded, or as well as you need to pay for services for an interpreter or translator if needed. The second qualitative methodology that I'm going to discuss is participant observation. It is defined by Marshall and Grossman in 1989 as the systematic description of events, behaviors, and artifacts in the social setting chosen for study. Meanwhile, Kowalik in 2005 defines participant observation as the process enabling researchers to learn about the activities of the people under study in the natural setting through observing and participating in those activities. So usually includes observation, natural conversations, interviews, checklists, questionnaires, and unobtrusive methods including walkabouts. It requires researchers to be careful observers and good listeners. It also allows researchers to check definitions of terms that participants use in interviews, observe events that informants may be unable or unwilling to share when doing so, and they also provide an opportunity to observe situations that informants have described in interviews, thereby making them aware of distortions or inaccuracies in the description provided by those informants. Some of the advantages, according to Bernard Russell in 1994, is that participant observation, there is a possibility for collecting different types of data because being on site over a period of time, it familiarizes the researcher to the community, thereby facilitating involvement in sensitive activities to which that he or she would not be invited usually. It also reduces the incidence of reactivity or those people acting in a certain way when they are aware of being observed. It also helps researchers to develop questions that make sense in the native language or those questions that are culturally relevant. Some of the disadvantages are participants may behave differently when they know that they are being observed. Also, some researchers or evaluators take note of what interests them personally, so thereby building some bias. Also, according to Kowalik, in 2005, researchers may feel excluded in the community. Some examples are some people or some community members using language that is unfamiliar to the researcher, or some members of the community changing from one language to another that is not understood by the researcher. Also, changing the subject when the researcher arrives, or the refusal to answer some certain questions, or for some instance, there are community members who are moving away from the researcher to talk out of the earshot, or their failure to invite the researcher to social events. The third qualitative methodology is document analysis. Glenn Bowen said, document analysis is a systematic procedure for reviewing or evaluating documents, both printed and electronic material. It helps you to triangulate the claims about your project because it allows you to refer to multiple sources. So documents serve as various purposes. They provide us context and historical background, they point to possible interview questions, and they offer a means of tracking developments and monitoring progress over the course of a project. And lastly, they provide us a means of verifying or questioning progress or proving claims. Some of the advantages of document analysis is it can be cost-effective and readily available because if data is required, or especially if data is acquired or extracted from the internet. Document analysis also helps you focus on the questions you might ask in interviews, and it also helps you understand what to look out for when you're going to conduct participant observation. It is also particularly useful when you want to drill down or focus on a particular case study. Also, documents offer specific and stable data which is unaffected by the presence of researchers. Because, as I've told you a while ago, in participant observation, project participants may behave differently when they know they are being observed. So some of the disadvantages of document analysis is it can lead to information overload. So you have to, in doing this type of methodology, you have to ask yourself the following questions. Which parts of which document are most relevant to your question? Which is largely about the progress of your project and the factors that have helped or hindered that progress? Also, documents may not be complete or written in an objective manner, so you will have to adopt a critical stance and not assume that the information contained within them is precise or unbiased. Lastly, documents may need to be anonymized and scrutinized against other documents. So you also have to keep in mind that this question, is the one document that you end up using most representative, or is it stating something very different to all other documents? You have to know the purpose of the document. Case study is the last qualitative method that I am going to discuss. So if you are going to monitor and evaluate a project, you may have already obtained in general information about your subjects, but those information may be not precise, or they may be broad, and it may contain a lot of statistics but may not give you a feel for what is really going on in that community or whatever subject you have. So case studies can provide you in-depth information. In other words, it examines a person, a place, event, phenomenon, or other type of subject of analysis to extrapolate key themes and results that help predict future trends, illuminate previously hidden issues that can be applied to practice, and provide the means for understanding an important research problem with greater clarity. Also, case study papers can be designed as a comparative investigation that shows relationships between two or more than two subjects. The methods used to study a case can rest within a quantitative, qualitative, or a mixture of the two. So some of the advantages of using case study is it captures complexities of a real-life situation, as it provides us rich or thick detail about our subject, and it usually gives us the challenges that people experience in their lives. It also explains how and why a phenomenon has occurred, thereby going beyond numerical data. It also allows us the integration of qualitative and quantitative data collection and analysis of methods. Also, it may offer you an opportunity to gather evidence that challenges prevailing assumptions about a research problem. And it also provides a new set of recommendations applied to practice that have not been tested previously. However, some of the disadvantages is the lack of rigor, or a study may not be sufficiently in-depth, or a single case study may not be sufficient. So single case studies may offer very little basis for generalizations of findings and conclusions. And also case studies often tend to be success stories, so that may involve a degree of bias in the study itself. To conclude my presentation, I want you to know that you can use mixed methods of evaluation, or you can combine qualitative and quantitative methods in a single evaluation. So make sure you check my co-reporter's presentation to learn about the quantitative methodologies in monitoring and evaluating social marketing and social mobilization programs. Thank you for listening to my report. Make sure to participate by answering these following questions. First, give one qualitative methodology you have used to monitor and evaluate social marketing or social mobilization programs, and tell us why you used it. Second, based on your answer in the first question, what are the advantages and disadvantages of using that qualitative technique? Again, thank you so much, and have a nice day, everyone.